All right, so today's video is another spotlight video, and this one is going to be on the Type G trade gun, the Carolina gun, it was called. Type G is a terminology that's used to categorize them today, but they were called in the period Indian trade guns or trade guns, and this particular style was called the Carolina gun. It's the predecessor of the Northwest trade gun. So this gun is 1700 to 1750 roughly. So about 1700, but 1750 and a little bit later. And it was called the Carolina gun. It's an English gun made in England in the factories by the gun makers in the houses in England, but it was made for the southern native trade. So the Cherokee and South, Creek and all the Cherokee, all the Indians, the natives that were basically in the southern part of the United States. Some of the northern Great Lakes tribes and whatnot would have been serviced from one of the northern colonies. So this gun was brought into Charlestown in the Carolinas, warehouse there, and then passed out as they saw fit. So it mainly, these guns were seen in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, some in Kentucky, some kind of creeped up there, but mainly in those southern states. So the early trade gun, a little bit different than a Northwest trade gun. Most people are familiar with the Northwest trade gun. And this particular one is made by Jack Brooks, gun maker. He made a few of these himself, and he also had a run of time where he sold kits to make these. But this is one that he made himself. So it's one of the more prized ones, and I'm real happy to have it. So let's take a look. So as there was several makers, several gun making houses in England that made these, they were all a little different. So whether it was Bumford or one of the other houses, they had a little bit different characteristics, but they were always this general idea. So if you take a look, now this one is made after an existing gun made by Bumford. It's called the Bumford gun, and it was painted red, and it had this ink floral design painted into the stock. So it's one of the more famous ones. Some people think it was a restock. Some people think that the painting was added after, maybe perhaps by a native or by a particular distributor or reseller that knew what a particular native wanted, and he was going to bring this gun to him. Something along those lines. I'm not sure. I'm not the historian on this sort of thing, but this is what you're looking at. You're looking at a fairly straight stocked, kind of that English style wrist coming down into the butt, round face lock, bridleless, so that's correct for that early period. Bridle, the pan is here and it's not connected to the frizzen at all. So there's no bridle going across that helps strengthen that. That's an early type lock. And no entry pipe. These ribbed pipes were pretty common. That was a trade gun staple. Most of them look like that. And no nose cap. So simple gun. A few of the unique characteristics of this was the brass made from flat stock, so just flat brass. Now it's been shaped a little bit, but that's pretty standard flat brass stock. So you would have had this shorter nailed on. You can see where that was nailed on. The shorter finial nailed on, also nailed on the butt, just the way they were. The side plate would have been an early side plate. So it's some people call it the serpent side plate. It was actually a dragon, but it's forward facing, where the Northwest trade gun, his head is turned looking backwards, which has another connotation. So a lot of kind of martial meaning in a lot of this stuff. But that's the typical side plate for the early Carolina trade gun. Typical thumb piece, also nailed on. And most uniquely is this rear sight. And if you see where that rear sight is, right up against the front of the frizzen spring, that is way back much further than you're used to seeing. Most rear sights are up here somewhere. So real unique sight, a deep V, super deep notch in there, tall rear sight. Let's see if I can get a decent view of that for you. You can see just how deep that is. And it's really nice for shooting at different distances. And it really, I was kind of curious about this, and it really makes a good sight picture. So you can sight along the bottom of that groove for the most elevation. If you sight in the middle of it, it's almost like a peep sight because it's on either side of, and it's easy for your eye to center in the center of that gap. And then also you can look and sight in at the very top of that V for a different distance. So pretty cool there. Pretty typical small early brass sight, welded on sight in the front. And Jack Brooks made this. Oh, another thing about them is they were originally beech as well. So kind of the cheapest wood, plenty strong for these, but no real curl, or it wasn't a pretty wood. It just kind of blah all the way across. This particular one has all the correct markings, or a lot of the correct markings. There's no London up here, and that was a lot of times typical, but it has all of the proofing house stamps correct for the early 1700s, along with Jack's logo, which is the IB. The early J's were written as an I, as a capital I. So that's it. You can see the vine painting along the top, simple, and the line painting, I'm sorry, and that would have been engraved on a nicer gun, but these trade guns were basic. Just rough formed, and you can see the hammer marks, rough formed trigger guard, and not inlet. Typical long trigger guard, but Fowler type trigger guard. Round face lock. Now this particular one, made by Jack Brooks, he hand made all of this brass furniture. It's an R.E. Davis round face lock, finished bright. It is a 58 octagon, I'm sorry, 62 octagon to round Getz barrel in 62 caliber, and this has been charcoal blued. So the package I got with this gun included the photograph of him charcoal bluing it in the yard. So that was pretty awesome. So true charcoal blue, and that's it. Pretty simple, lightweight gun, kind of 6 pounds, so I mean, nothing hardly to it. Shoulders super well. I mean, you put your cheek on there and you're lined up. Matter of fact, I'm lined up naturally in the center position, in kind of the peep sight position. So I go right into that, and I can adjust where I actually want to line up for the distance I am. So I'm real happy with the shoulder ability of this gun, and just how cool it is. I've never had a trade gun before, and this Jack Brooks made Carolina gun kind of popped on the market, and so I snatched it up. One thing about this unique rear sight is it is what's the word I'm looking for? Never mind, we'll skip that. So lock engraved as well, and that's the correct engraving that you would have seen on the hammer and on the plate. He's got Brooks in there in the place of Bumford or whoever the maker of this gun would have been. So very typical, just what you would have seen. Very very nice bench copy of an original Carolina gun. So 62 caliber, lightweight. Real excited to get this thing out. I want to show you while we've got it here. I want to show you kind of the gear that I carry with it, and it's very similar to a rifle gear. So you've got your bag, but in here I've got tow, I've got round balls, I've got cards and wads, and powder horn. Nothing real unique about this horn. It's a Sibley horn. I think you guys have seen it before. This is not the horn that's going to go with this gun. I've got Scott Sibley making a red-throated one, painted in a similar color to the gun. and a little native design on it, and so that's coming. Handmade powder measure tin with a wood plug in the back. Pretty cool, simple. I like these simple. This is what they would have carried in the period. And also, you're gonna have a shot bag. So leather strap, shot pouch. This one is deer belly, holds about 2 pounds of shot, and a clothespin stopper, so we can hang upside down. So pretty cool. So I like this kind of native sort of, and it wouldn't have been just natives that would have carried the Indian trade gun. It would have also been your kind of lower class. This was entry level gun. So if you couldn't afford much, this is where you'd have gone first. Probably not painted, but possibly painted. If they had one of those when you went to buy it, you might have taken a liking to it and seen your Indian buddies that had them painted and thought, man, I'm gonna be like my buddies, and got it like that. Otherwise, it would have been just plain beach. So we've got that. That's white deer belly. I'm also gonna make a shot bag, because they typically carried a little ball bag as well, and out of deer belly next year to go with this set. So, and then your shot measure. So that throws about 1 ounce and 1/8 of shot. I can heap it and get 1 ounce and 1/4 or so out of it, maybe 1.5 ounces. So that's that. This is extra weight you're going to be carrying, obviously, with smooth bore, but everything else is the same. So hope you like this video. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.